All right, let's wrap this card up real quick. This was the card fight night between Rodriguez and Dern. Happened during the Fury versus Wilder fight. They put the card together like it was happening during the Fury and Wilder fight.
Trash.
Didn't really have any big names. Rodriguez ended up sort of smoking Dern after the third round. So the first round, there was a filling out process. Second round, Dern got her to the ground. And she actually had a 10-8 round. She came out the third round and she was gassed. And right from there, some things that I really noticed is Dern upper body moves well when she's doing her striking, but her lower body sort of stays in place. Her grappling was good, but one thing I don't like is people who walk when they fight. And what I mean by that is people who swing their arms. Because one thing I noticed is the arm started up here swinging, then it ended here swinging, now it's down here swinging, and that's when Rodriguez started throwing that high right kick over that left hand, and Dern really didn't have an answer. She was getting pieced up on the feet, couldn't handle it. Next fight, that was sort of a good fight, was the co-main, Brown versus Gooden. Gooden's a power puncher, Brown's a tall, lanky guy. This was the fight card for people who liked movement, guys who moved a lot. They had a lot of fancy footwork and moving guys in this card. Brown had good movement. One thing I didn't like is he got a little bit too cocky. I don't like when guys start dancing in the ring, doing all sorts of theatrics after they make someone miss. Especially because I've seen Brown get knocked out before. So, you gotta stay humble. You gotta keep it together. Just keep the fight focused mentality until the fight ends. None of that dancing stuff. Because if Gooden was a little better, he could have capitalized. Brown was getting his legs kicked off. I've seen that happen before. Didn't really check any kicks. He was trying to evade everything. And when you're trying to evade everything, you get caught in a weird spot where your legs come together, and that's what's happening a lot. He was getting kicked. But he answered that with some push kicks. He started push kicking. Gooden was a shorter fighter, so couldn't really get in the range. He was over swinging. Brown ended up winning. Next fight, sort of similar. He had a tall, lanky guy, Tim Elliott, at 125. One thing that was weird was his entries. He loved throwing a pawing uppercut. Not sure if I really ever seen that, but I've seen Tim Elliott do it. And he came in he'd do something like a skipping knee. So he'd have his knee up, he'd skip in on one leg. He came in with fancy footwork, and once again, he was all cocky, smiling, pointing, all the theatrics. He ended up losing. Nicolo was better. He stayed within himself, stayed real structured. I like that. Tim Elliott ended up gassing. Nicola ended up doing his thing on the ground and on the feet. Next fight, that was pretty good. I'd say the Agapova versus Mazel fight. Agapova's just coming off a loss. She ended up piecing up Mazel just because Mazel was a little green to the striking. She was flat-footed. Didn't really know how to enter against Agapova. Didn't really throw enough. Agapova, even though she punches from her chest like this, she landed a lot. She caught Mazel coming in, dropped her. Mazel fell to her hands and knees. Agapova jumped on her back, choked her out. One fighter I will say you should look out for is, I think his name is Romanov. He's a heavyweight. Romanov. And this is one thing that I would like to see grapplers do. When I say Romanov is a beast, I think this is how John Jones is going to come out fighting. Picking guys up and slamming them on the ground. That's as a striker is actually very intriguing to me, and that's what I like to watch. He's at a heavyweight. He's picking these guys up and slamming them on the ground, suplexing them on the ground. Really aggressive, really good to see. He picked his opponent up about 4 or 5 times, slammed him on the mat, and then he ended up with some nasty ground and pound, busting them all up, real aggressive. So that's a fighter I want to see at heavyweight. Someone like that who's going to really get grimy with the grappling, on that laying and praying stuff. And the final fight that I thought was pretty good was Claros and Gutierrez. Gutierrez had very solid movement. I'm a big fan of movement, especially when you're going side to side. Makes you harder to hit, and when you're throwing those feints. But that was the card. There was nothing too crazy. It was a small card, about 7 or 8 fights. And I think they held back their main fighters because they knew that the Fury versus Wilder fight was going to happen. Smart on Dana. Don't make it a competition. Eat the L.